ladies and gentlemen, Nick Faria joins us now. Hello, Nick.
Never gets old. How's everything going, Jake?
Fantastic, man. Looking forward to seeing you Saturday. Again, if you want to meet Nick, you want to meet Wayne Corbett, who, by the way, should be joining me on radio today at 1:30, Jet fans, 1:30 Eastern. Wayne Corbett hopping on, and we'll certainly talk about Gangrene Beach Club with him.
Make sure you as well.
That's right.
As well.
That's right. A Flying Dutchman, that Wayne Corbett.
That's true, yes.
GangreneBeachClub.com to get your tickets. Nick, let's start with the latest on Geno Smith. This is from my podcast with ESPN Jets reporter Rich Cimini and Brandon Tierney yesterday. Rich, right before we went on the air, said, hey, guys, Geno Smith pulled over again. Here's the latest on everything involving the Jets quarterback.
So a couple of things here. And with the allegations that emerged a couple of weeks ago with his ex-girlfriend, the allegations of a dispute or perhaps domestic violence, we don't know that yet. No change. They're still investigating it. Have not received any update from the Davie Police Department. So presumably that investigation is still underway. No arrests, no charges, and that is ongoing. Now, there is another development relating to Geno, and I want to make sure we put this in the proper context, because in a vacuum, it would be no big deal. But given what happened or allegedly happened a few weeks ago, I guess it all goes into the story. So I was, just before we came on the air, was going through some court records in Broward County, Florida, which, of course, where Geno resides. And he was pulled over for speeding a couple of days ago. On Monday, it would happen this past Monday at about 11 o'clock in the morning. He was doing the police report claimed that he was doing 70 in a 45-mile-an-hour zone. And he also was not able to produce a license at the scene, so he got ticketed for that. So, look, we've all been through this. I don't know about you guys, but I've had speeding tickets in the past, so, no big deal, right? But in this case, it probably deserves to be mentioned, considering it's the quarterback of the Jets and what we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And these are traffic violations. These are not misdemeanors. These are citations. It's about $400 in fines. He doesn't even have to show up in court. It's your basic speeding ticket. And so I just thought it deserved to be mentioned because of all the other stuff that's been happening.
Well, here's the thing. He was pulled over for speeding on Monday, didn't have a license. He got pulled over for not having the right tags on his vehicle in March, also didn't have his license. Again, can Geno just carry his license on him? Is it that hard? That was my first reaction as Rich was going through this. That's not twice in 4 months. He's been pulled over and didn't have his driver's license on him. How hard is it to carry your license on you?
I kind of talked about this already, but on Boy Green's show, but I'll give a different kind of perspective on this. If I were Geno Smith's PR guy, if I was Geno's guy to make sure he stayed out of trouble, the very clear answer is this: dude, you're never driving again. Enough with this. Two traffic stops, 2 traffic violations. There's no need for this. There's no need for this added publicity to this. You're creating more problems than they're worth. Just stop driving. There's no need for it. Hire a driver. You don't have to worry about it ever again, and go forward from there. But as Rich also said, and I completely agree with, is this something that you're going to sit here and say, is this going to be a distraction for the Jets when they take training camp or go into week 1? Of course not. It's a traffic stop. We obviously don't know about these more serious allegations. We have to wait and see what evidence is presented for there. So obviously, it has a completely different situation. But in the context of these 2 speeding tickets, it's really nothing more than just you wish he was a little bit more mature. You wish he wasn't as abrasive to the cop when he was pulled over that first time. Is this going to deter him from being the starting quarterback week 1? Absolutely not. You just want to see better decision-making from the quarterback. But in the end, it's just not going to mean as much.
It just feels like it's unnecessary. It's not a great look. It's just weird how he becomes a Jet again, and like all the immaturity stuff that surrounded him in his first go-around with the Jets seems to be now following him once again. Again, it has no bearing on what the woman that filmed the whole viral incident on Father's Day. It has no bearing on that, but we still don't have any resolution on that to this point. So, the last thing the Jets need is if they get to training camp and then it becomes a huge story if, the police department in Davie, Florida ends up charging him with something. So again, it's just another thing, right? Another thing that is surrounding the Jets that is not the ideal scenario that you want going into training camp in a few weeks.
Of course not. But and you brought up his time in Seattle and Vegas. I think there's a different dichotomy to being a starting quarterback on the West Coast or for a team like Vegas as opposed to a big market team like the New York Jets. Everything is more heavily scrutinized. People are looking at you more. I think that's kind of the difference. This isn't to say that he didn't get into trouble in Seattle or Vegas. We have no idea. It just may have been completely covered in that sense in terms of driving and everything like that. We just don't know. But again, it's a distraction. You don't want to see it. But it's one of those things where I look at it and say, okay, what's the expectation for Geno? What's the expectation for the Jets? If he's supposed to be the franchise quarterback for the next 4 or 5 years, then it's get your act into gear now, move forward. We need you to be better than you currently are. But he's a stopgap. That's all he is. That's all his role is this season. He is the stopgap to whatever quarterback they eventually draft in 2027. So, yes, you want to see a captain, a franchise quarterback, be more mature, a guy who's going to start for you all season or expected to start for you all season. But is this the guy that you're going to be trusting 3 years down the road to win you games? Of course not, because there's going to be another quarterback in here that takes over eventually.
I mean, the head coach needs to win games, though, so he needs Geno Smith to get his head on straight and be locked in and provide competent play at that position to have a chance.
Sure, but even then, right? So let's say it's either one of two options. Either Geno Smith plays competent football, the team plays a lot better, they win more games, and Aaron Glenn gets another year and the ability to draft his quarterback next season in 2027. Or the distractions mount up for Geno Smith. He hasn't learned anything from his first go-around. The team crumbles. The team is bad. Aaron Glenn and the coaching staff get a complete overhaul. There's a new offensive-minded guy that gets hired. And you still draft a quarterback in 2027 anyway. So the end point to this is really all the same. They're taking a quarterback in 2027. It's just a matter of how they get there. That remains the biggest question.
How they get there, it could be the Jets are awful and they use one of their own picks on that quarterback, or maybe the Colts are awful and that helps them. But either way, they got 3 first-round picks, and we know they're going to be aggressive to get their quarterback, because even if you're an optimistic Jet fan, I don't think you're expecting Geno Smith to play so well that the Jets think they have their guy for multiple years.
Yeah, I think the floor has to be 7 wins. They have to get to 7 wins. There's talent on this roster. You have to expect the coaching staff to improve. The floor must be 7 wins if this team is going to keep this staff and keep this kind of core together going forward. It's just that simple.
All right, Asmaniacs, listen up for a second. No matter what you're watching, whether it's New York sports or any game you didn't plan on caring about, there's no better way to stay locked in than with PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy made simple. You're just picking more or less on player projections. That's it. No complicated lineups, no nonsense. Just you versus the numbers. And here's why I love it. Even if it's a game you normally wouldn't care about, once you got a lineup going, you're locked in. Every play matters. Every drive matters. Every at-bat matters. I've been mixing sports too. Maybe a little football, throwing some baseball, maybe some basketball. And now you've got action across the board all night. And PrizePicks makes it even better with features like early cash outs if your picks are hitting, the ability to mix multiple sports in one lineup, and you can even see what other people are playing and tail their picks. So if you haven't tried it yet, what are you doing? Download the PrizePicks app right now. Use code HMA. That's HMA, and you'll get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, it's HMA on PrizePicks. PrizePicks, where it always feels good to be right. Nick, before we talk training camp, CBS Sports put Aaron Glenn as the number 1 coach on the hot seat going into the year. Dan Quinn was 5, Zach Taylor was 4, Shane Steichen was 3, Todd Bowles 2, AG there, number 1. Your thoughts on this list? Is Aaron Glenn on the hottest of seats of any coach going into the year?
I don't know if it's of any other coach, but he's certainly on the hot seat to this season. And listen, he's not going to be able to go 0-7 again. He's not going to be able to start 2-5 or 1-6. There's got to be incremental improvement right away, whether it's beating the Titans, beating the Packers, whatever it ends up being. He's got to win and win early this season in order to prove that he actually understands how to build a winning football team. For better or worse, listen, Robert Saleh got 3.5 years. He got 3.5 years. Aaron Glenn getting 2, there are going to be people that say, well, he didn't get the same kind of leash that Saleh got. But with Robert Saleh, you had a win improvement from year 1 to year 2. And it happened early. I think they started, 7-3 at one point in the 2022 season. That was year 2, and they started 7-3. They got off to a good start.
6-3 and 7-4, but yes.
Whatever it was. But they had won 7 games, and they were on the cusp of a winning season going into December. Now, we know how December ended, but the win total had improved. The quality of play improved. If the quality of play does not improve under Aaron Glenn this season, then very clearly they made the wrong decision with this coaching staff, with this thought process, with this plan. Now, they're going to be able to get out of it. They're going to have a lot of coaches be interested in this team because they've got $80 million in cap space next season. They've got 3 first-round picks. So there's a lot of talent here and a lot of resources to work with. But for Aaron Glenn, it's as simple as this. It's not enough to just win 7 games and your job is safe. If you win 7 games, but you have a negative 200-point differential, that means the quality of play hasn't improved. You need to show that this team is taking strides week in and week out from a quality of play perspective. If they lose, they're losing close. They're in games they shouldn't be in, against Buffalo, against Kansas City, against New England, and they're beating the teams they need to beat, beating the teams like the Titans or the Browns or the Dolphins. It is to this point right now where it is not enough to win 7 games. They have to look good while doing it.
I mean, they need to get off to a good start, I think, for this season to be anything, because I just don't picture the Jets, doing what they did, let's say, in 2002 when they were 2-5 and then rallied to finish with 9 wins and win the division.
He may not get a chance to finish the year like that. And I don't think Woody wants to make an in-season coaching change like he did, because it just tanked the entire season in 2024 or 2023, whatever it was. But you can't deny, you can't start 2-5. And we've kind of talked about this before, the week 1 game against Tennessee. You say it's a must-win game. I say it's a can't-lose game. Not necessarily that the season's over if they lose to the Tennessee Titans, but man, do the optics just hit a crater if they cannot beat Robert Saleh in Tennessee week 1.
Well, the optics of how the season looks matter. Like, if they get out to a bad start and then win games late, that shouldn't save his job. To me, if he wins 8 games, to me, it doesn't matter how it looks. He's going to be brought back because no one's won more than 7 in a decade. But if they finish with 7 wins, but they start terribly, that's not good enough. Like, you have to go out there and get off to a decent start. You have to be much better against the division. I've talked a lot about this. Week 1, must win against the Titans. You win that game, well, then maybe you can win one of your next 3. Then you could beat the Browns. You could beat the Dolphins. You could go out there and beat the Raiders. You could be 4-4 through your first 8. That's me trying to be positive. Like, that's kind of what they need to do. They need to kind of prove that last year was last year. They flushed it. They moved on. New players, new coaching staff. Glenn has learned from it, whatever. Get off to a good start and build confidence. And then maybe you learn that you can actually win. You start to learn how to win by actually going out there and building confidence early on when teams are not at their best the first month of the year. Like, if you're ever going to steal a win against the Packers or the Lions or the Bears, you rather play them early in the year than late in the year, and that's the opportunity the Jets have in front of them.
And particularly for the Green Bay Packers, they don't have Micah Parsons in that game. And Green Bay, you look at the numbers they did last season. They did not win a single game last year without Micah Parsons on the field. And they may not have Josh Jacobs. So you're looking at the perspective for the Packers of they don't have their best offensive player and they don't have their best defensive player. That is a team ripe for a sort of backseat, taking a step back. I look at it from the comparison of Dan Campbell. And the reason why is because very similarly, in Dan Campbell's first season in Detroit, they started, 10-1. They were the worst team in football. They looked horrible. And the only thing people really talked about was, man, Dan Campbell's on the hot seat. He's got to show that he can learn from his mistakes. He's got to show that he can develop this talent into a team that should be competitive. And they won 9 games. They took that next step. The coaching staff learned from their mistakes, and you saw that incremental improvement. They didn't make the playoffs. They weren't perfect, but they took a step in the right direction. That step has to be the same for Aaron Glenn this season. If he takes a Dan Campbell-like step, he's going to have a third year. If he doesn't, we could be on the market for another head coach this year.